Hello and welcome to episode 64 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. The theme of today's show is Don't Be That Guest at Walt Disney World. These are things that you should avoid when you're in the theme parks, whether you're a first-timer or a park regular. I'll once again be joined by Sarah Says to go over some of our no-nos. Before we get started, I wanted to remind everyone that I'm getting ready for my 620-mile pilgrimage on the Ireland Way to raise money and awareness for the nonprofit organization Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence. In addition to this big trek in Ireland, I've been doing some smaller training events to also add to the fundraising pot. Earlier this month, I took part in the Run Disney Tower of Terror 10-miler at Walt Disney World, and a number of people donated $1 per mile to help survivors of domestic violence. Well, this Sunday, April 24th, I'll be taking part in my second Mammoth March hike this year. The 20-mile hike with an 8-hour time limit will be taking place in southern Florida. Once again, I would like to ask for donations of $1 per mile at the link in the description. You can also find the link as a pinned post on my Twitter pages at Rick_ear and at TGTT Podcast. That's at Rick_ear and at TGTT Podcast. If you can't do $20, I completely understand. 50 cents per mile is still $10, and that will also make a big impact. I'll be doing much more with this fundraiser as the pilgrimage itself draws nearer. Right now, a $10 or $20 donation would mean the world to us. All right, it's now time to welcome back Sarah Says to the show. It's a pleasure as always, Sarah.
It's a pleasure to be here. How are you doing?
I am doing excellent. We're going to talk about something today that may seem negative at first, but I think it might be something that will help newcomers sort of know what to avoid when they are at one of these theme parks, whether it be Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Universal, any of these theme parks. Things to avoid doing when you're there. We're going to call it Don't Be That Guest at Walt Disney World. And these are just some tips. We're not complaining. We're not saying these are bad people. We're not gatekeeping. We're just having a little bit of fun here and talking about some things that maybe people don't notice over the course of a hectic vacation. And some of these things are going to help you out in the long run, and more of them actually attack guests like myself and Sarah, who are veterans and do things a lot. So nobody is going to be spared in this one. Sarah, what is the first thing that you have in Don't Be That Guest at Walt Disney World?
Don't be that guest. I've been trying to decide, should I just dive right in it, right for the jugular, or should I go lightly? So whether you are a veteran like us or it's your first visit, don't be mean to the characters. Just don't be mean to the characters. That is a big one. I know if you're videoing it, if you want to get some likes on your Instagram, things like that, they're people too, or bears or chipmunks or mice. Just remember, treat them kindly. There are small children around. There are other people trying to enjoy the magic. So that is definitely one of my big ones.
Okay, so obviously I have to agree with Sarah here, and I made the caveat that we weren't going to be attacking people here, but we're going to make an exception on this very first one. And if you treat the characters or, frankly, any cast member poorly, there is absolutely no excuse for that. And there has been a trend with people on, I guess it's mostly TikTok, but also on Instagram and some of those other social media platforms, saying inappropriate things to the characters at especially the Disney parks, doing things that are very inappropriate, trying to get characters to break character. They're not going to do that. Don't do that. You're putting people in a very, very awkward situation where they don't know how to react. Anytime somebody is forced to be nice to you and you take advantage of that, that is so not cool. So this might be a good one to start. We're going to get a lot lighter from this point forward. But that is absolutely a disturbing trend on social media. People almost bullying these characters. And I think with hugs coming back and some of
Mm-hmm.
those interactions getting closer now, I think we might see even worse stuff. So don't be that guest at Walt Disney World. I'm going to move on and talk about a controversial topic, but I'm not as much of an absolutist on this as some other people, and that is kids on shoulders for the fireworks. I am not saying don't put your kid on your shoulders for fireworks. I'm not saying that. I don't know what it's like to have a kid. My parents never knew what it was like to have a short kid. So we were never in this situation where I had to be put on shoulders or this was ever an issue. There are just a couple things I would like to suggest for the enjoyment of everybody, including other kids in the audience. If you can possibly just hold your kid to your side so you're both at eye level looking at the fireworks, so if you can see them, you know your kid can see them. That is one suggestion. This is another one that I don't think a lot of people talk about much. Don't lift your kid up and put them on your shoulders right as the fireworks are starting, because everybody has already found their spot. The people behind you are locked into that spot. If you're going to hold your kid on your shoulders for the fireworks, have your kid up there a few minutes before the fireworks start so everybody has the opportunity to find a spot where they can see them. And this is big for other kids as well, because there might be a kid who's at Walt Disney World, for example, for the first time, but that kid's 12 or 13, not going to get put on the parent's shoulders, but still deserves to see that fireworks show. Now, on the other end of things, on the flip side, as somebody who is, the show's called Tall Guy Talks Travel. I'm 6'4". As somebody who is as tall as myself, I pride myself on when I get there, I stand where I'm going to stand for the fireworks. I do not move 2 minutes before the fireworks. I see tall guys do this all the time, and it drives me nuts. You stand somewhere, and then 2 minutes before the fireworks start, you move somewhere else and completely change the sight lines for everybody. It is imperative, whether it's at a theme park, whether it's at concerts, if you're tall, just keep that in mind. We can see everything. If somebody puts a kid on their shoulders, I can still probably see the fireworks, but that doesn't mean that I should only be thinking about myself. Just be self-aware about what is going on around you. That's the simplest way I can describe this one.
Yeah, as a parent, I take a very unpopular opinion when I saw this all start popping up because I have a kid and I've been to shows with my kid where he needs to be on our shoulders to see. And when we were kids, it was totally different at the parks because there was no projection. It was literally fireworks and that was it. So it didn't matter if someone was on shoulders or not because you didn't miss anything. It's so high in the sky. But now it's very much a spectacle all around. But I will say that my child, he's a very tall child, so he'll probably be okay when we go. But if we were to go now, he would be on someone's shoulders because he needs to see. But like Rick said, being aware of where you're standing, make sure you're standing there, don't move, be aware of the people around you is such a big thing at the parks, is to just be aware of your surroundings, because I make sure anytime he's on my shoulders, I'm looking around to see, are we blocking someone at this very moment? Because if we're not, that means they came up behind me and chose to stand there. So if you choose to stand behind me and my kid is already on my shoulders when you get there, that's a whole other story. So, but yeah, just definitely be aware. No, it's okay, but just be courteous of everyone around you.
I think that's going to be the name of the game with a lot of these. If you're just paying attention to what's happening, you're not just thinking about yourself, you're thinking of the enjoyment of everyone. That can go a long, long way. What else do you have on your list, Sarah?
One thing that you don't want to do is don't forget to eat. For the enjoyment of everyone, don't forget to eat. It is so, especially when it's one of your first times going, it is so easy to get sucked into everything and be so excited that you forget to eat, or you forget to feed your children because you're not eating. So it's like, oh, well, they're going to be fine. But I know, having been to the parks many times, Meltdown City in Fantasyland, like right around lunchtime, a little bit around like when kids eat snacks. So remember to eat, whether you get something there. You can bring snacks into the park. So don't worry about having to spend like $500 a day on just snacks. But do remember to feed yourself and feed your family, feed your friends, see other people, tell them to eat too, you know? So yes, remember to eat.
Luckily, I've never had the problem of needing to be reminded to eat when I'm at Disney, so I usually take care of that one pretty well. But this is a fantastic point, and I think it goes beyond eating, especially if you're going with kids. Just be cognizant that they're going to need maybe more breaks than you're going to need. You're never going to accomplish everything at Walt Disney World in a week or 2 weeks or a year. I've been going to the park since I was 5. I go basically every week now, and I still haven't accomplished everything at Walt Disney World. It's okay to take 5 minutes to make sure they go to the bathroom when they need to go to the bathroom. You don't have to make them hold it for one more ride, and then they're miserable in line, and then they're making other people miserable in line, and they're making you miserable in line. Every once in a while, taking it at your pace. Yes, when Sarah and I are at the parks, I went to Disneyland with Sarah. We go hard.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that when my wife Courtney needed to stop, use the restroom, or just stop and sit for 5-10 minutes because we were going too fast or too hard, maybe she sat for 5 minutes and we went and rode a ride. Maybe we all just sat on a bench for a couple minutes. You can take breaks. Don't think that you have to constantly be moving. You will make it miserable for yourself and probably for other people as well. That is a very, very good observation because it wasn't necessarily what I was thinking in some of these.
Thank you.
So I'm going to move on to one that is probably a little bit more Walt Disney World specific, and this is one that's going to ruin your trip way more than it is going to ruin the trips of other people. But don't be the guest who assumes that they can park hop from Animal Kingdom to Magic Kingdom in 15 minutes. Especially Walt Disney World is gigantic. It's like half the size of San Francisco, or it's the size of San Francisco, or some weird statistic like that I should know by now, honestly. But Animal Kingdom is so far away from Magic Kingdom because they don't want the animals to be upset by the fireworks, so they kind of tucked it away in the corner. By the time you leave Animal Kingdom and walk to the buses, wait for the bus to go to Magic Kingdom. Maybe you just missed the last one and there's not going to be one for 45 minutes. And then it's going to pick you up, and then it's going to take you a while to get around Disney property and get to Magic Kingdom. And then you're going to walk through the gate. Don't assume that you can make that dining reservation that you have in 25 minutes. Always give yourself plenty of time. Don't be the guest who assumes you can get 2-3 more things in at one park before you park hop to another one. We have a mutual friend on Twitter, Sean, who will tell you, don't trust the Disney buses to be punctual. Mm-hmm. They're great. It is great that you get free transportation in between the Disney parks. That's awesome. Everybody gets it. It doesn't matter if you're staying on property. You can go from Animal Kingdom to Magic Kingdom on a Walt Disney World bus, but you're going to have to wait for one. Don't assume this is going to be quick. It will ruin your vacation, and then your vacation being ruined is going to end up ruining other people's vacations, because then you're not going to be happy, and it's going to be a domino effect.
Yeah, definitely do your research before you go to Walt Disney World. I was that person. I was that guest my first adult trip to Walt Disney World. I did not do hardly any research before besides looking at everything that was there. I did not make a dining reservation. I did not plan all this stuff, and it really literally rains on your parade while you're there. But in Disneyland it's very similar. If you are on Pixar Pier and you have a dining reservation at Blue Bayou in 15 minutes, you're not going to make it. And I know this from personal experience. I took my cousin for her 18th birthday, and we ran. Once we got off Mickey's Wheel of Death, we ran across California Adventure. Then we had to wait to get out, run across the Esplanade, wait to get in, and then run to New Orleans Square. And running is frowned upon. And we were like 15 minutes late for our reservation. So definitely do your research. It's helpful.
Do your research and just give yourself plenty of time.
Yes.
I know time is a valuable commodity on vacation, but making sure you don't miss some of the most anticipated moments of that vacation is even more important.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the next thing you have on your list?
Okay, so my next one, I know we said we weren't going to go deep, but again, but I do have one that please, more than anything in the world, I ask, do not be the guest that, to put it basically, to ruin it for the other guests or the kids. So my example here is there's a Frozen show. There is many videos of this Frozen show where Olaf is singing in summer, and Olaf goes, before he turns into and without fail, there is at least one adult in the crowd who screams that he will turn into a puddle, and it just goes dead quiet. And these children are very upset, and it's not funny anymore. I'm sorry. It's not funny anymore. It breaks my heart as a parent, as a Disney fan. It's like, I understand people are just trying to be funny and have a good time, but it's not a good time for everybody. So I just ask, please do not be the guest who does things like that, because like we said with the fireworks and kids on your shoulders, things like that, think of the people around you before you make your choices, because sometimes you never know who you could be affecting with that choice.
And I know just a couple of minutes ago you said rain on your parade, quite literally. I want to move on to the parades with my next thing, and this is one for the regulars, for the childless Disney adults like myself. I get it. Sometimes you get to that parade route an hour and a half before the parade starts, and you are waiting because you know what's going on at Disney. You're prepared. You have been standing there for 90 minutes waiting for Festival of Fantasy at Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World. You're right there in the perfect spot, and then that family comes up at the very last minute who didn't know you have to be there an hour and a half before the parade, and their kids are stuck 6 rows back, and they're not going to be able to see the parade because their parents didn't do the right research. Never blame the kid because the parent didn't do the research. Yeah, the parents can stay 6 rows back and watch the parade from there. That's fine. Let the kids stand in front of you. Offer to have the kids stand in front of you. I'm 6'4". You could put 7 kids in front of me. I'll never notice it. Just don't be so selfish that you're not willing to make sure these kids have these special moments. It's one of those things that end up giving Disney adults a bad name. Let the kids go in front of you. It is not going to change your experience whatsoever. Those parents are going to be so happy that you let them do that. I understand you put in the time and you earned it. We are all so lucky to be able to do this, even if we're like Sarah and we can only do it every couple of years. I do it all the time. We are incredibly privileged. We are spoiled. Some kids are only getting to do it once, and this is their one memory for their lives of seeing Anna and Elsa in Festival of Fantasy. For you, it's a Tuesday. For them, it is the most important day of their life. You can let them go in front of you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I would happily, I've done that at concerts and things where it's like, there's a kid back behind me and I'm like, just come in front of me. You're fine. It's no big deal. But it's true. If you've seen it, I know it's so exciting. It's back. it's the first time we've all seen it in so long, but like Rick was saying, it could be the one time that they ever get to see this, where some people are lucky enough that they could go multiple times a week, or they get to go multiple times a year, and they get to see all these things all the time, where there's a group of people, that they get to experience it through YouTube or they get to experience it on Disney Plus. So it's kind of like being a Disney cast member, right? You're making a magic moment for those kids. And they will be telling their friends when they get back to wherever they're from. I mean, they could be from like Spain, and they get back and they're like, this guy, this girl, this person, they let us stand in front of them for this parade, and we almost didn't get to see it. And this awesome person did this for us. It's definitely, it gives you good karma.
And I'm actually going to piggyback on my own answer and give another one that's sort of related. And that is, don't get in other people's pictures if you can avoid it. Sometimes we get wrapped up in our own little world. We're looking at our smartphones because we have to make that next Lightning Lane reservation, or we're trying to see if we can find some last-minute dining, or checking out the wait time for Haunted Mansion. Whatever it is, we're looking at our phones. We're looking around at all this beautiful scenery. We're looking at Cinderella Castle. We're reading the names on the windows in Main Street, USA. And we don't realize we just walked in front of an entire family who's getting that picture in front of Cinderella Castle, that one they've been waiting for their entire lives. You don't need to be standing right next to the person looking at your smartphone. Just be aware of your surroundings. I try as much as possible, if it's early in the morning and everybody's like rushing to rope drop their rides and there's a couple people standing in front of the castle getting their pictures, don't walk behind them. Let them get that picture of them with nobody behind them in front of the castle, because that's what they chose to rope drop. Some people are on Space Mountain. Some people are on Big Thunder Mountain. They wanted this picture in front of Cinderella Castle, so let them get that. You can always just kind of curve around people and give them that space. Don't be the guest who winds up in back of everybody's icon pictures at Walt Disney World.
No, totally. It's like, if you see them standing there, nobody's behind them. I mean, like you said, that's what they chose to rope drop. And they've probably been planning it like, okay, if we get there right when it opens, that means probably nobody's going to be in front of the castle, and we're going to get this perfect picture. And then there's someone just hanging out like, oh, look, a bench. I'm going to sit right here. It's like, come on, guys.
And Sarah, what if this is their once-in-a-lifetime trip to Disneyland, and they rope drop Disneyland, and they immediately head back to New Orleans Square, and they go to the Haunted Mansion, and they have been waiting to ride Haunted Mansion their entire life and experience this ride? What is something you should not do when you are there?
Never, ever, ever recite the pre-show. Especially if you whisper it, great, but do not recite it at top volume. Haunted Mansion, as many people, especially if you're on my Twitter and stuff, know, is one of my absolute favorite rides. And to this day, it is like nails on a chalkboard. And I could not imagine it being my first visit and that happened, because it would ruin it completely for me. And then I'd be like, I'm not riding this anymore. I don't want to sit here and listen to this guy and this person over here tell me the whole thing and then scream at the end of it. It totally ruins the ambiance, guys. Like, oh, I could go on. Like, I could have a whole show about this one. It drives me crazy.
Calm down, Sarah. I think this is an example of people like myself who are spoiled, who get to go all the time, and we try to make it interesting for ourselves each and every time we're there. But nobody cares that I can recite the entire Haunted Mansion pre-show. It's not as cool as we all think it is when we're doing it. And you do have to think of that person who is experiencing these things for the first time, and they're trying to get that really, really cool vibe. The thing that made us love this ride so much that we've ridden it enough that we can recite the pre-show. That's what they're experiencing for the first time. And almost every time you are on a ride at Walt Disney World, you're on with somebody who is doing it for the first time. So please, just keep that in mind. Just try to remember how awesome it was the first time you did Haunted Mansion, because we all want everybody having that experience for their first time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So now I'm going to talk about something that a lot of first-timers do that annoy us veterans. So I can take it, but I'll also dish it a little bit. And this is just be aware of your surroundings, but don't just stop in the middle of walkways. Yes. This is a safety thing. This is a comfort thing. I get it. Cinderella Castle, Spaceship Earth, the Tree of Life, Sleeping Beauty's Castle, Mickey's Death Wheel at Disney's California Adventure. These things are beautiful, and you want to take pictures of them. Just take the 3 extra seconds to move to the side. If you just treat all of the walkways the same way that you treat the roads, I mean, not people in Florida. People in Florida treat the walkways better than you treat the roads. But just follow those types of rules. If you're going to get to the side, make sure you're looking around you and you just drift over to the side. Then you can stop. Then you can take as many pictures as you want. People won't be bumping into you from behind. People won't be having to make really quick stops. Just know that you're moving in a herd of people. Even when there was social distancing, you were still moving in a 6 feet apart herd through these theme parks. When you stop, everybody behind you has to stop, or they're going to slam into you. So just keep that in mind. Think about what's going on behind you as well as what's going on in front of you, and everybody should be fine. On that same note, try to walk 2, maybe 2 with a child wide, and that's it. Don't go 6 people wide walking down Main Street, USA, because some people are going to want to walk faster, some people are going to walk slower, and you are blocking a huge traffic flow when you're doing that.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you just said. And also, kind of to tie on to the don't just stop to take a picture. Don't, when you're on your phone, this happens all the time, and this happens like everywhere. If you realize and you're going to meet someone that they're not where you thought you are, don't just automatically turn around and start trying to walk upstream. Like, pull to the side, orient yourself, figure out where you need to go, and then go. But just stopping is going to cause an accident. It's like cars, like you said. Pull to the side, take a minute. And I know it's fun, like, to walk with all your friends and try and be all together. But especially at Disneyland, the walkways aren't as big and wide in most places as they are in Florida. Florida is built to get so many more people in there. And so it's like, especially if you're used to Walt Disney World and you're coming over to Disneyland, be aware that things are going to be a little smaller, a little more cramped. And going to a totally different park, Wizarding World of Harry Potter, is made itty bitty. So please remember these tips of, if you want to stop, I know that fire-breathing dragon is so cool and we all want to wait for it. Head up to the giant mass of people who are waiting for it to breathe fire before you stop, or pull to the side. It'll just make your time much more enjoyable, less likely that anybody has to visit first aid, and you're not going to have to try and put your shoe back on because you got a flat tire. It's many things that'll make it much, much happier for you.
And on that same note, once you've pulled to the side and you've had that conversation and you've taken the pictures and you've decided what ride you're going to next, then look like you were on the road, look both ways, and then merge into the oncoming traffic. Yes. Don't just have a big ball of people on the side of a walkway and then you all just start walking at the same time, because there's probably people going around you while you're there. And then when you walk, you're going to start bumping into people. And this is as much for the guests who are there for the first time as it is for the other people who are walking around them. You don't want to be crashing into other people either. Sometimes taking an extra 5 seconds saves you 2 minutes in the long run, saves you 10 minutes in the long run, saves you the aggravation of somebody bumping into your kid, somebody bumping into your wife, and then she's in a bad mood. Like, stuff just happens sometimes, but we can be aware of our surroundings and mitigate that, eliminate needless inconveniences.
I feel like maybe I should do this as a side gig to my homeschooling. We need to start like a defensive walking school for people who are going to Disney to like teach them how to walk in and out of the crowds. And it can be like part of, we can offer our services to travel agents to be like, do you have a first timer or second timer going to Disney? We can teach them how to defensively walk in the parks.
And honestly, as somebody who goes to a lot of sporting events and concerts, it's not just a Disney problem. Like, this happens absolutely everywhere. And if you don't know whatever venue it is you're experiencing at the time, you're going to have a lot of times where you have to pull to the side. Just be cognizant of it. That's all. It's not a big deal. I know a lot of Disney regulars make too big of a deal out of this. It's just something that we're suggesting to make your day just a little bit more magical, and something you might not have thought of before you headed to Walt Disney World for the very first time, because you have to think of 8 million other things.
Yeah, and Walt Disney World too gets a lot of tourists from out of the country, and not every country walks on the same side that we do. So a lot of people, it's a culture shock for them to have to, I mean, they may not be driving when they're here because they're taking an express or a bus or something like that, but walking in the parks where they come from, they may walk on the other side and they don't realize, oh my gosh, I need to walk on the other side here.
So Sarah, I'm sure we're going to revisit this topic at some point in the future. But before we go, I just want to say, like, we are not trying to be negative here. This is not about making fun of guests who are at Walt Disney World for the first time. This is not about complaining about Disney adults who go all the time. All we're trying to do is just raise a little bit of awareness, say, listen, I want to have a good time when I'm at Walt Disney World, when I'm at Disneyland, when I'm at Universal, but I also want everybody else who's there to have a good time when they're there as well. That is the entire point of this episode. We are a positive podcast. We don't like to mess around with being too negative like some of the other shows. So I hope nobody got upset. Nobody thought we were dunking on them or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I do have very powerful feelings over the Haunted Mansion, but ultimately, yes, it's to give you some ideas of things that will help make your trip more enjoyable and everybody else's trip more enjoyable, whether you know them or not. It's things that are just tips that we've found in our time going to the parks that will really help you enjoy your time there more, whether it's your first time, your only time, your 583,000th time. It's just to kind of help you out a little bit and have a little fun with it.
Sarah, as always, thank you for joining us for another episode.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been episode 64 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. After spending a week in Pennsylvania, I'm planning on talking a lot about that trip on the show next Thursday. If all goes well, I should be visiting Hershey Park and checking out a little Walt Disney World history. Until then, have a great week.